Hello, everyone. This is Maureen, and I'm here with Dr. Angie, and we have a really important talk for you. So, thanks for sharing your time with us tonight and listening to this recording. And try to listen to the end if you could, if for no other reason than to bring some light to a really taboo subject. So, if you went through one of our wellness to weight loss programs, or our detox or turbo programs, or any other diet or weight loss program out there, and you reached your goal weight, and then you just found yourself bouncing right back to weight gain and constant struggles, then this talk is definitely for you. We know this happens often because even though we've had a lot of people say that they love our programs, and we've seen people have amazing transformations, but unfortunately, society in America sets us up for difficulty to maintain it with all of the processed and packaged food, fast food, junk food, and not to mention every single holiday or non-holiday event. It's always revolving around food. And this is just super hard for pretty much all of us. Then there's also those of us who do all the things, but the weight is just slowly creeping back, or you just literally have to be on program 100% to lose or even maintain your weight like me. And that's a clear sign that there's some kind of metabolic dysfunction going on. So this happens often to people who have yo-yo dieted multiple times throughout their life, people who have extreme amounts of stress, oftentimes people with MTHFR gene mutations, autoimmune disorders, sluggish thyroids, etc. That's me. We just want you to know that we listen to you, we hear you, and we understand the battles that you're facing. And we agree that no one should have to be on 100% of the time in order to maintain a good weight and good health. We don't like it either. So, we are about to launch something new to our weight loss offerings at our center, but it's something that's extremely controversial. So we're wanting to clear up any misconceptions. And I'm sure most of you have heard about the highly marketed weight loss shots, the GLP-1s, the Ozempics, the Wegovy's, Semaglutide, Tirzepatide. There's so many of them now. And that's what we want to talk to you about because you may have strong opinions on these things, and you might be surprised at our current stance on this as well. Since we're the owners of holistic wellness centers in Madison and Janesville, Wisconsin, you might imagine that we're generally focused on more natural approaches. And so we get it because we personally were both very negative thinking towards these shots originally. And I'm going to be honest, you may have even seen or heard us speak out against them in the past couple of years because that's how we felt. But if you know either one of us very well, you know that we literally spend all of our time educating ourselves, reading studies, listening to experts, and researching all things health and weight loss because we want to know the best ways to help ourselves, our families, and of course you, any of our clients and your families who trust us. Our goals are always to help everyone who joins us to make the best decisions for your long-term health goals. Now, you can imagine that there's a lot of new science, data, clinical trials, and new opinions that come to light practically every single month. So it's hard to keep up with all of these things. And we're just so grateful that we decided to revisit this. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Angie to, start things off explaining why we've personally learned or what we've personally learned to not only embrace the GLP-1 craze
Mm,
that's here to stay, from what we can tell, but what
yeah.
we've learned along the way to make us love the opportunity to share the many health benefits that are out there for that come with this, in addition to the amazing weight loss. So, Angie, you want to take it from here for a minute?
Yeah, thanks, Maureen, and hi. And I am excited to be here to talk about this. And here's the thing, a lot of people think that these shots are drugs. That's what we thought. And so the first thing I really want you to know is that GLP-1 is actually a hormone. It's a hormone in your body and it's naturally produced. And I want you to kind of think of it like a thyroid hormone. They're it's very important for what you'll find out later in our talk tonight. So sometimes, unfortunately, for many people, our hormones don't always produce adequately, or even, you might have a doctor who thinks you're in a thyroid storm and they're going to remove your thyroid, when in fact, maybe you were just having, a very stressful time, right, Maureen? Maureen had her thyroid removed and they accidentally took her parathyroid. So, thyroid and just all hormones are so important to us. We also want you to know that we don't usually recommend anything until we've tried it ourselves. Like that's rule number one. And it's been well over a year, right, Maureen? I believe about
Yeah.
that. And we both tried these shots. And when we had them in our office, the idea was we really just wanted to kind of see, how do we feel? There wasn't a lot out there. They were just like this magic weight loss. And so Maureen only took a couple weeks of these because the side effects for her were pretty awful. And we'll talk about that because we know now why and we know what to do about it. But for her, it was not good. And for me, I would say I really didn't have any major side effects, but after a few weeks of being on these, it was kind of like, I thought it was going to be magic for me, and it wasn't. And when I looked at the cost and I looked at the results, it really just didn't make sense. It was so expensive back then. So I just didn't kind of equate that, doing this shot for the expense and the little results that I got was really worth it. So now I want to kind of just fast forward. And here's the thing. There's so much new research, and even more importantly, looking at the older research, which we did not do. We didn't know it really existed, but going back like 20 years. And, that's sorry. And that, is really come out to show that these peptides, along with education that we have, we've learned so much more about the benefits and how the benefits far outweigh any concern that people are having and some of the side effects that people are getting, and they're getting so much more better results. But I am telling you that it has to be done correctly. Like, that is so important because there is bad ways to do this, there's okay ways to do this, and there's really good ways to do this to really get the benefits. So we also know that these peptides they're not going anywhere. And it's growing so quickly. I mean, it's amazing, right? And so if you, I always say you have to be under a rock if you haven't heard or seen a commercial. But we all know somebody who's on one of these, who's thinking about them. And maybe that's even you. Maybe you're just kind of squirmish about starting. Maybe you know some friends who, yeah, they lost a lot of weight, but they had some pretty serious side effects. So you're kind of like squirmish. We want you to know that doesn't have to happen to you. And so, if you've been on kind of this weight loss yo-yo dieting journey, like Maureen said, she's been on it most of her life. I've been on a diet since I was in 5th grade. I swear, I've done it all. And so when you have this, you put so much effort into losing weight and then you gain the weight back. It's pretty hard to deal with it. It's kind of a hit, right? So we just decided we needed to revisit this. And with the amount of phone calls that we are getting about these shots on a regular basis, we realize that they're going to use them no matter what. So we want them to do it right. And, you know, not risk buying. I hate to say this, but like anything, you got to beware, but not risk buying some of these cheap kind of black market, for lack of better words, GLPs that are, sold over the internet. And there's a lot of them. And you have a lot of these kind of med spas out there. You have people who maybe have a friend who's a doctor who are, they're really not in the health field selling these. I mean, I've seen it all. And so what I want you just to be aware of, as it's one thing to think about, it's kind of like buying CBD on a street corner and not really knowing what's in it. I mean, who knows? I mean, I hate to say it could be laced with something, that'd be terrible, but I mean, you just don't know. So, we discussed it at length with our medical director and nurse practitioner, and they've already been implementing this. And that's kind of what caught my eye, is watching them and going like, okay, so Maureen, we've just really, she was on her own really researching these kind of on the backside, for some of the benefits she'll talk about here in a little bit. But for me, I was watching, my nurse practitioner and some of the things they were doing. So I've got even more curious. And so I got a good lesson. And they've been implementing these injections in their office for quite a while now. And so we decided we were going to offer them, but we just decided we have to do it right. Like, we want to make sure we know how to do this right. And I will say we are pretty fired up about this because so many not so well known health benefits are just waiting for you to experience. And so weight loss, though that's kind of been the forefront of these so-called, weight loss injections, it's it's really more than that. And like just actually weight loss it really should still be a great side effect, but unfortunately, it is now being marketed just as that miracle weight loss drug. And all the health benefits are kind of getting lost in the shuffle and some overdosing.
Yeah, and these peptides were actually discovered through research looking to help regenerative medicine in the field of neurodegenerative issues decades ago, before even the whole diabetes thing. So think like brain neurons and cell regeneration. And that really caught my attention because my husband has a traumatic brain injury. And so I heard that and I was like, I need to really start diving into these. So before we get into the process of how GLP-1s actually work, we want you just to listen to the list of some of the many things, literally from head to toe, that are potentially being reversed using these GLP-1 peptides. So there's decreases in neuroinflammation, therefore helping reduce brain fog, pain, depression, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, um, it reduces chronic illness, kidney disease, pancreatic function, non-fatty liver disease, which is huge in the United States these days, PCOS, acne, autoimmune diseases like thyroid, psoriatic arthritis, psoriasis. It even helps with infertility issues and alcoholism, and it provides smoking I can't say that word ever, cessation. They reduce the risk of high blood pressure. There's a regeneration of heart and cardiovascular tissue that reduces the risk of dying from heart disease by 30%. That's the number one killer in the world right now. So that is just absolutely huge. There's an 18% reduction in upper respiratory issues, and we all know that there's a lot of that going around. And of course, it improves and heals metabolism by making your cells more insulin resistant or insulin sensitive, and can even reverse diabetes if it's caught early enough. So, like I said, you guys, this is just absolutely huge. The amount of people suffering from these issues is astounding. And of course, inflammation and excessive weight is present today in at least one member of every single household, I would think. And, I hate taking meds and I really very seldom do. So when I think about this now, I just think it's so sad that these peptides have been here all this time, but they were so villainized that people like myself and you all are missing out when truly no one would think anything of it if someone said that they have to take thyroid hormone like I do every day just to survive. I mean, I don't have a thyroid, so I have to take hormone, or people that take insulin or vitamin D. Sometimes we just have to help supplement what our body isn't producing correctly on its own, and our bodies should be producing these GLP-1s. And so it just shouldn't be like, such a negative thing.
And here's another interesting thing is that these peptides, and remember, they are a hormone and that naturally should be present throughout your body. They're designed to be there. And it's been studied for decades, at least 20 years, substantial research goes back. And as we said, it's been used to treat diabetes for over 20 years. They actually thought to be one of the greatest discoveries, ranking it right up there with penicillin. and because of all of its positive effects that it had on the metabolic health. So just to give you a little bit of stats, I just check this out. 2018 data showed 94%. I mean, that's like 9 out of 10, right? US adults have metabolic dysfunction on some level. And that just means they're on the road to what? Diabetes. It's crazy. And we all know somebody who's diabetic or thinks they're being told they're pre-diabetic. And also in 2021, we could go through a lot of studies. We're just going to point out a couple of them, but this was very interesting. So in 2021, the Journal of Diabetes stated that patients who presented with COVID had an 80% improvement with the GLP-1s. I mean, such an amazing clinical data just to support the pros of these peptides. Think immune system. So what we have really found to be kind of the key here is the key is in the dosing. Now imagine the word gets out that, back the COVID days, right? We used to have the freshman 15 and now we have the COVID 20. These celebrity doctors started using them all around kind of that 2021, 2022 timeframe. And kind of that, official start of the universal weight gain problem post COVID. And things just went crazy with everyone wanting it. I just remember thinking, what? Oh, this can't be good. I just remember thinking, oh Lord, now they want to inject you with something. And I'm thinking, I didn't realize the history of this. And so here we are today. But here's the thing. People started claiming that everyone taking these shots who didn't have diabetes were just hurting the diabetics who needed it because they were creating the shortage. The truth of the matter is these shots, diabetes can get them through their medical doctors, and they're given out by these pre-filled pens, and it's actually the shortage of the pens themselves, not the peptides. So here's the thing. Anyone using these peptides in a proper dose, they're most likely coming from a 503A compounded pharmacies and vials where we can regulate the dose based on the person's needs, their, all of their health history and their health parameters, and not based on some standardized dose of diabetic, which I believe is way too high for what you need to do. I just think it's too high. And so, one of, the shortage is not through the pens, is through the pens, not the actual peptide. And so for the last couple of years, here we just kind of sat watching, listening, and really learning, really trying to take off our kind of narrow-minded thinking and kind of just open up to the possibilities and not be limited by what we thought we knew. And we've concluded it's not the actual GLP-1 that's the problem. And I mean, like we kind of mentioned earlier, there are some really probably cheap, not so great quality, I'll call them black market for lack of better words, peptides out there that you don't want to probably touch, right? But it's also the dosing that's the problem. It's causing way too many side effects. And one of the big ones that you'll hear about is the gastrointestinal issues. And it's a real thing. We're not saying that doesn't happen. I don't think it happens as much anymore, but I have a friend who is an anesthesiologist, and she told me, Angie, I don't like these meds. And we started talking about it and talking about why. And she's like, oh, I never even thought about the dosing. And I was like, yeah, they're starting these people out who are already, they're already in a health crisis. They're right on the edge of everything going south. And then they're building them up. They're doubling and doubling and doubling. The dose is, in my mind, just too high. And they're experiencing nausea to the point where some people can't even go to work. They're sicker. They're so sick, like they're, having, they're pregnant and having, that kind of nausea. Acid reflux, constipation is very popular. Diarrhea, dehydration, headaches is very common when you're at the wrong dose. You can have low blood sugar, fatigue, dizziness, extreme muscle loss. It doesn't have to happen. And the great news is with the education that, so many practitioners, really around the globe, they're all kind of talking about this. And, these symptoms purely are unnecessary. So let's kind of dive into what we've learned over the last few years and why we have decided to bring this to our weight loss business and offer this, more of an assistance with our medical director and nurse practitioner to really dial this in and make it right and right for you. So first understand that we all have GLP-1. This is kind of a quick little lesson, but we all have GLP-1 and GLP-1 receptors all through our body. It's something we are born with. Now, you can be born with a deficiency, right? Just like any hormone, we have them present all through our body. So for many, at some point in our lives, we become resistant to these peptides, which actually drive metabolic disease. So it's likely that, people who, like, I kind of feel like I do all the right things. I mean, I'm not perfect by no means, but, at almost 60 here in 2025, I feel like I don't look my age. I feel I have good energy. I sleep good. I do all the right things. I eat really well. I lift weights. I mean, I'm not a gym rat, but I'm somewhat physical. And I know a lot of people are sitting there, oh my gosh, that's me, right? I feel like I'm doing all the right things. I'm getting, adequate sleep and water. My stress is fairly under control. I mean, as much as we can control that, some days are better than other, right? And yet something is lacking, and it keeps you, it keeps me, it keeps us from our ideal metabolic state, which eventually will go from excess weight to depression to, a number of things. And then before you know it, you're on, some, medical interventions for, depression and high cholesterol and all these other things. So, Maureen referenced, a lot of the things above. All right. So the most significant finding that many of you are probably most interested in is the GLP-1 peptides, um, for activating our own GLP-1 receptors so that our body responds better, our brain responds better. And what I want you to remember too is this is a signaling hormone. And if it's done correctly, this is what can help correct so many of those issues that we outlined above. But it also reduces, which is kind of a good thing, because we talk about, this, oh my gosh, like I can't get my hunger out of control. I'm always thinking about food, but it will reduce your hunger. It slows down, but not stopping your digestion. And it just helps us feel full a little longer. And curbing the cravings is a big thing. We live in a world of processed sugary foods and drinks and social. It's like we live in Wisconsin, and I can drive by any bar any day, any night, and it's like on a Monday night, like it's packed. And so to curb those cravings and really allow our insulin to slow down, and we have some tips too in our programs for this, but to become resensitized and ultimately really help us lose those unwanted pounds. However, guys, these shots are best suited for those who have been fairly consistently working to change lifestyle and habits for the better, which this may be most of you. And so, just thinking, if you're not willing to make some changes, if you're not doing all the right things, or maybe you're kind of good, maybe you're, the weekend warrior where, your weekends, you're eat and drink because you've been good all week. Yeah, I would say, you got to be you and you got to live your life. But, if you're doing these and you're just going to continue to eat and drink crap, listen, it is not a hall pass to do whatever you want. You still need nutrients. You're frustrated because you're not seeing the progress regardless of your best, efforts. Some of you are doing all the right things. You're in the gym, you're eating right, you're getting good sleep, but you're still struggling to maintain, your weight. Some people just struggle with the good habits. They really don't know what's good food. And you're struggling probably with inflammation then, and maybe you have some autoimmune issues or some other health struggles that you're tired, you're bloated, you've got this ravenous appetite. You just can't, stop thinking about, something that's, in the pantry. and your stress eating, your emotional eating, and to maintain, you feel like it's not even worth it, because if you're not 100% perfect and have that perfect lifestyle, you're just you're just not going to get any results, and you kind of throw in the towel. And that's really not living your best life. And that's why these peptides are so amazing.
Well, and it really is true that so many of us do all the things, and we kind of fall into this little group of people that there just doesn't seem to be help for us because the diabetics can get the shots, and people that have extremely high BMIs and lots of excess weight can, but there's a small group of us that we just need to get kind of a leg up to try to heal some more things in our body from the history of yo-yo dieting.
Yeah.
And so with all that being said, using these medications in combination with creating better lifestyles, I mean, if you're not already there and you don't just need a leg up, but we want you to create a better lifestyle and create good habits. And a lot of times you can yield these amazing lifelong results when you do get your system healed. And, let's be honest, no one should have to spend every minute of every day thinking about what they can or cannot eat. And no one should have to live on a 100% restricted lifestyle in order to look and feel healthy. I mean, there were times I didn't want to go to events or do anything because I knew the kind of food that might be there, and I didn't want to look weird and not eat, or eat my food ahead of time, or maybe it was a time when I had some excess weight and I didn't want to go because I didn't look good. I mean, no one should have to live like that, right?
Yeah.
So, um, but we don't want to give you the wrong impression, like so much of the marketing and propaganda out there does, letting you think that these shots are just magic and you no longer have to watch what you eat or do any exercise. And, sure, there are some people that do just buy these shots and they definitely lose weight, but they're most likely not going to be healthy long term because with every healthy weight loss, there are most likely not going to be, you know, healthy long term. Um, if they just buy the shots and they don't do the things that they need to do. So you got to do a little bit of restriction of your food intake. And if you do it correctly, um, and then you start dropping your calories along with taking the GLP-1, you will lose muscle if you're not doing some strength training. So you really need to add that in too. So we're not saying you have to go pump iron at the gym every day, but there are some healthy habits that we want people to create. It's so much easier to create these habits though when you have something that's kind of calming the noise down in your brain and you're not just like craving all these things all the time, or when you have the energy to do things and you feel better. So, this is much like any other diet. If you want to maintain or build muscle, whether you're on a GLP-1 or not, what is the solution? You got to eat sufficient protein and you need to lift some weights. You need to have some resistance training. So, these are kind of non-negotiables if you're going to take these injections. They're not negotiables if you do in a diet any diet period. So if you choose to go this route and you go through us, you will get food guides, you will get metabolic testing. We want to know where you're starting from so that we can make sure that you're not losing too much muscle mass. We will give you exercise suggestions so we can just kind of see how your fat loss versus your muscle is tracking. And the biggest indicator of early aging is muscle loss. So, I mean, there's nothing worse than thinking about, getting older. And I'm in my 60s. I don't want to think about in my 70s or 80s, I can't get up off the floor. I have a bunch of grandkids and I want to be able to go to their sports and do things. And I don't want to get skinny and weak. I want to be healthy and strong without having a weight issue. So, um, you just need to do all the things that we know are necessary for your overall health, and that's what we're here for. So for anyone choosing to go this route, we'll give you input, we guide you, we track you, and help you reach your lifetime health and fitness goals. So obviously you still have to work at it, but the GLP-1 should be the icing on the cake. So sorry for the analogy, but seriously, you should be able to,
Yeah.
have a little icing on your cake once in a while, right? So this kind of allows you to live more freely, like an 80-20 lifestyle rather than 100%, on all the time and developing some orthorexia or, food issues because you've deprived yourself so much. So, um, it's time that you can actually reach your goals instead of living like this and yo-yo dieting. So in our centers, we see so many people who put a lot of effort into their health and well-being. They exercise 4 to 6 times a week. They watch and track everything they eat, and they just can't get the needle to move. And then you start to restrict even more and more, and you up your exercise even more. And whoever said, eat less, move more, it just doesn't work. So it just creates this massive shift in our brain and metabolism to slow down even more. And, then we just think, what is wrong with me? Nothing works. No matter what I do, I can't lose or maintain my weight. And food is good or food is bad. We get all this mantra in our head and we just keep restricting and working harder. And we're draining our bodies and we're destroying our adrenals and our hormones. And until we just feel completely defeated and become depressed and ultimately throw in the towel. So I can't stress enough that this is not how we're meant to live. So what these peptides can do for those that I just described above, including myself, is to help correct that pattern. We want to begin to see that food is not all evil and we don't have to spend hours in the gym, especially who has 2 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week to do that. Um, but you can still begin to see results over time. And as you're making these new habits and building, habit stacking and not be so hard on yourself and see the good habits actually make a difference and give you your life back. You think about like animals in the wild and they never have to think about what they eat or shouldn't eat, but they always maintain a lean body. You just don't see an obese animal in the wild, right? So only overweight animals I've seen are, house animals. So
Yeah, my dog.
yeah, right. So, they have it figured out. They stop eating when they're full. And that's what we want people to do. But that's why we really want to work with people individually, because if you start to lose your appetite too much, we need to make some adjustments because we want you to eat. And if these peptides make you feel full because they're doing what they're supposed to do and kind of shut off that hunger hormone, then we need to make sure that you're getting enough protein and that you're eating enough. And we don't want people to give up everything. And but we also don't want people that you work so hard all month and then you have one night of pleasure and you're set right back where you started. So the whole eat less, exercise more philosophy just does not work. So you want to add to that, Angie?
Yeah, I was, and when we talk about like lifting weights and stuff like that too, I don't want you to think that you have to like go to the gym every day and lift, 150-pound bench press or something like that. You start where you're at, and we discussed that with you, but you start where we have a whole process on for somebody. If you're watching this and you're like, this sounds really good, but they're telling me I have to go work out. When we say non-negotiable, we don't care if you're using a 3-pound weight or a 50-pound weight, but
Or no, wait,
or no weights, right? You can even use bands or not even just
to
your own
start
body
out.
weight.
Yeah.
So we guide you in that too. So I don't want somebody who is, listening to this thinking, oh, now I got to join a gym and I got to do. No, you don't have to, but we want to make sure that when it's time that you've actually built some muscle in this process, not lost muscle, because if you do it right, you could actually build muscle and more lean out that way. So I feel compelled to kind of just talk about, the downside a little bit. And, when we found these GLP-1 shots, one of the things, we really had to dive into is like, what's the problem? And what we found is they really are not everywhere and not everyone, but a lot of misuse. And kind of like we mentioned earlier, there's plenty of kind of that black market, cheap. It's like half the time they'll say, oh yeah, for like $79 a week or a month. I don't even know. But sometimes that's not even for we had a client today who told us like, yeah, it's like when I found out it didn't even include the actual peptide, it was just their monthly fee. So you really want to be careful of a lot of these hidden fees that are out there on the internet, on TV, because oh my gosh, right? Or in some of these offices. But honestly, we know a lot of people who are being over medicated, and this is what's causing that extreme side effect issues of like the nausea and having that full suppression of appetite, causing way too much like fast weight loss due to malnutrition and not providing support for a proper diet or doing some of that weight training, whatever level you're at, is really causing some of that extreme muscle loss and hair loss and gastroparesis. And that is, something to be concerned about. Not to mention, if you're not eating enough fats and protein, you're going to have some neurological dysfunction. I know somebody who's gone kind of off the deep end with these, and it saddens me, but when you get all of a sudden like involuntary muscle um uh tremors and stuff like that. Like that's not good. But it's because they've suppressed their appetite so much that they're not getting any nutrition, they're not getting any healthy fats and protein, and they're losing muscle. So we just want to make sure that, again, if your appetite, if you're watching this and you're already on these, and maybe we've said something that will help you better plan, we want you to know that you have to make sure that appetite is not suppressed. That is so important because just all of the fast food, all of the processed packaged food, all that junk food that we're exposed to all the time. I mean, you go to a hospital, it's vending machines, right? You go anywhere. It's just it's not healthy food. And you're going to lose weight, sure, but you're also going to lose way too much muscle and be malnourished, and you're going to have some of these side effects if you're not careful. And if the dosing is wrong. So these shots should be used as a tool. Like think of it as a tool to getting your body back into a homeostasis, running like a well-oiled, fully functioning vessel to carry you into your later years. Don't think short term. If you're thinking short term, your later years could not be that great. So think long term. And more is rarely better when it comes to these peptides. And these overdose folks that we've kind of implied that, we've talked about here, they're going to build up a tolerance to these GLP-1s too, causing them to no longer be effective. And then, they're going to have to stop the med completely. And instead of, titrating down, they're going to have all these risk of gaining all this weight back. And now they're not going to have muscle. So they're going to gain weight back and be just super, super flabby. And so it's really important that they develop good eating and exercise habits. And I just want you to think about it. If people don't want to do what they really should have been doing all along, or while you're on just kind of your life journey, if you haven't been really thinking about this and then you're starting using these GLP-1s, the shots, it's going to be harder for you to really pick this up and want to continue with it. So I would say my best advice is get your mind wrapped around the fact that I don't care if you're at home in your living room and you have 3-pound weights. There will need to be some weight bearing exercises that you'll need to do because you're going to want to do that. And there's macros, there's protein, there's fats and carbs that are essential for us. Carbs maybe not essential, but there is a place for them in our diet. All right. So just remember, if you are told that you have to be on these shots forever. That's probably the biggest thing that it's one of the questions I get is, am I going to have to be on this forever? I don't want anybody to ever have to be on anything forever. But if you're like Maureen and you have no thyroid, she will be on a thyroid med forever, hopefully a very, very long time, right? Because she doesn't have a thyroid. And if you don't correct your metabolic dysfunction, yeah, you may be on these for a while, or maybe if you're in a really high state of metabolic dysfunction, you might have to be on them longer. But the goal is not to have you on these forever. And the goal is really to get you stabilized, get you where you need to be. And there's a process to this. There's not, not allowing these peptides to become desensitized once you kind of build it all back and you get your metabolic syndrome and metabolic dysfunction under control and healed. So we definitely have a process for that. We also encourage people, it's not mandatory, but you may want to, have some labs done. We want to look for better insulin. So testing like a fasting insulin, leptin sensitivity, hemoglobin A1C. We want to make sure, maybe your CRP, homocysteine, that there's certain inflammatory markers that are in check. If you don't have a gallbladder, maybe amylase and lipase. So there's some labs that, you may want to have done, and that's discussed in our consultation. All right, so what's next? If you're at or close to your goal weight, but you have to, be 100% on all the time, and the stress of always trying to kind of balance an enjoyable lifestyle and your weight, it's hard. And, if you have the desire to decrease the risk of so many of the things that we mentioned above, you would be a great candidate for our very, very, very affordable microdosing of the GLP-1 to assist your body in reversing autoimmune, the reduction of the inflammatory responses going on in your body, bring down that cardiac risk, because we already know 30% reduction, and maybe even help regenerate, because we know based on research, it can do what they say can't be done, and that is regenerate brain neuron function, right? Those neurons. And so, the little things, which are kind of the big things, when we have people come in, like, what are your top 3 complaints? It's usually weight loss, my brain isn't working, and I'm just exhausted. Those are like the 3 things. And so brain fog, we see that that's going to improve. Reversing the possibility of dementia. Type 3 diabetes, guys, in other countries is called dementia, not type 3 diabetes. And so along with helping you maintain that healthy set point for kind of your perfect body weight at that. So microdosing can be really, really a great alternative. And a lot of places aren't doing it because frankly, there's not a lot of money in it for them to do it. And the people that are just using the pens, they're not adjustable for that. So that might be something to look into. If you're someone who feels you're still struggling to maintain your weight, or maybe you've gained a lot of weight back after completing a program, or, stressful, life just happened and before you knew it, you're 40, Maureen gained 40 pounds in a month when her thyroid went kapooey. So it's possible it can happen. But it's really a sign that you haven't corrected your metabolic dysfunction, no matter what. If it was, a program that was really good, it takes a lot. And if you're deficient, and until recently, we really didn't even know that was really such a thing. So if you are even just deficient in GLP-1, it can keep you from getting your metabolic dysfunction turned around. And so we know that metabolic syndrome, we've all heard diabetes and we've all heard all the horrible things, all the things that can happen, blindness and all of this, like, that's one of the things too. So many of these side effects are because a lot of the people who are using them at such high doses are already in that horrific cascade of all of those side effects of diabetes. So what really caused X? Was it the dose? Was it the peptide? Was it actually the fact that the dose was too high and they were already in that kind of that sick stress, health cascade? So we now have a variety of we wanted to do 16-week programs. And so we have a couple 16-week programs. There's no hidden or extra monthly charges like you'll find in so many of the other places on the market today. And, like everything we do at Nuovo Te, we choose to take really that personalized approach to support you rather than just hand you these injections out like candy, because that's what's happening. We work closely with our team to make sure each client is just approaching this in the best way that's suited for them. So costs will vary depending which product and dosing schedule we determine is best for you. We look at all kinds of parameters for you. When we sit down, we have a conversation with you. We want you to get the right program, whatever it is. We have our prices for these 16-week programs range from $300 up to $1,500 for a full 16-week program with all of stuff, the bells and whistles that come with it. It's a great,
And with the peptide.
oh yeah, and it comes ding, and it comes with the
Yeah.
peptide.
So it's getting long here, so we're going to wrap things up. We know this was a lot of sciencey info, but we just felt like it was necessary due to the nature of this topic. So it's recorded, so you can go back and listen more than once to take it all in. But the bottom line is this. Dr. Angie, our medical director, Dr. Brown, our nurse practitioner, and I, along with so many top doctors and experts in the fields of biohacking and peptides and hormones and all of these health issues that we've mentioned tonight, we've all researched the heck out of this, and we've all come to the conclusion that these peptides, whether they're done in microdoses for longevity and quality of life, or in doses meant primarily for weight loss, and then maybe you'll roll into microdoses later on until you finally once and for all reverse the metabolic dysfunction. They're not only safe, but they're so extremely beneficial for a huge variety of health reasons that, we mentioned a lot of them tonight. So we hope you guys find this info valuable, so that if this is something you've really been entertaining, it can kind of put your mind at rest, because I know it did for us. And we completely did a 180 on our attitudes about this once we understood the research. So um, if you have any questions or you'd like to schedule a consult, we will have our website and contact info in the notes below. But we just appreciate you sharing this time with us. We hope it added value to you as you learn more about the many options available to improve your health and or your weight loss journey. And we hope that you feel a little bit more confident about the benefits of GLP-1 peptide hormones. So with that, we're going to say goodnight.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.